Stitchy friends. I'm Amy. I'm the Globetrotting Stitcher, and I'm so happy to be back with you again today. It is Sunday, February. Wait, what day is it?
It's March.
It's March. I was going to say February. It's March 20th. Who knew? Welcome back. So anyway, if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. Thank you so much for coming back to spend time with us every couple of weeks. We really appreciate being a part of your regular Flosstube lineup, and we so enjoy all the time that we get to interact with you. So thank you so much for being, those of you who come back on the regular, thank you. We're really happy to be a part of your Stitchy lives. If you are just finding us for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy the content that we're putting together and that you'll decide that you want to stick around for the show anyway, we'll stop that. Thank you for checking us out. I hope everybody's been good. Just wanted to do a couple of comments and life updates before we get into the stitching. So first of all, if you have seen the last couple of videos, you will have noticed that Sophie has decided to up her game and she's trying to upstage me. It's been really funny as we've been watching the videos back the last couple of times, because normally when we're filming, she will lay and she'll look out the window behind me here and kind of enjoy whatever's sort of going on in the neighborhood. But the last couple of videos, she's been pretty active back there. And so it's been quite funny reading your comments on that. Somebody was saying in the last video that she was keeping an eye on my primroses for me because as I'd been talking about, the snow had done a number on them. And so anyway, it's just been kind of funny. So I fully anticipate that probably in the next couple of episodes, she'll completely unseat me from my chair, and then this will be the Sophie show. But anyway, I hope you've been enjoying seeing her make an appearance in the background, because she's been definitely making her presence known. Other than that, I was just wanting to tell you guys, because I think you'll appreciate this or enjoy it. I don't know about you, but every now and then I have like a really crazy dream, and I had a crazy nightmare about cross stitch last night, of all things. But it was absolutely horrible. I woke up with like my heart racing because I dreamed that I had been working on a project for months, and it was being stitched on sort of like it was a piece of fabric that nobody would ever actually stitch on. It was like canvas. It was woven like canvas, but it was made out of something like this fishing line type material. Very bizarre. But at any rate, the reason I mention that is because it was a material that was not going to be something that could be repaired. And in my dream, somehow a big hole had been ripped in the middle of the design, and it was not repairable. And I had spent all kinds of time working on this piece, and I was just devastated. I was furious. There was a lot of adult language. And so once I actually woke up and realized that, okay, it was just a dream, none of my cross-stitch projects had gotten ruined, I had a good laugh at myself, because I thought, well, you didn't criss it up very well in your dream. And so those of you who are part of the Stitchy community are familiar with the hashtag that Stitchman Darcy came up with a few months ago. Stitchman Darcy is one of our beloved members of our Stitchy community. And he came up with a hashtag for one of the other beloved members of our Stitchy community, who is Chris Cross Stitch. And many of you, if you're not watching Chris, if you're not watching Chris or Darcy, I can't recommend their channels highly enough. But if you watch Chris, you know that we all fondly think of him as the Mr. Rogers of our Stitchy neighborhood. He's just a very lovely soul. And the Chris It Up hashtag is sort of a reflection on when things go wrong, look at the bright side. Just bring a cheerful attitude to it. And so I laughed at myself, because there was nothing cheerful in my attitude in this dream. I was using very strong language about the situation, and there was no hashtag Chris It Up happening at all. So I thought you guys would enjoy that, because it did give me a good laugh. So with that having been said, we are going to talk about the stitching just briefly. I did want to tell you guys, I have been talking in my last couple of videos about this trip the trip that I took to Nairobi. And so I am going to talk about that and share some photos and reflections on that. But I'm going to wait and do it at the end of the video, so that folks who are just here to see the stitching and are not interested in any of that can move on to the next video. So I will share a little bit on that, but just wanted to let you know that's coming later on. So back to the stitching. Sorry for that little diversion. I have a couple of finishes to share with you, and I'm pretty excited about both of them. So the first one has been a long time coming. It feels like a big finish, even though it's a relatively small design. But if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I have been working in my travel category on a piece called Silent Night by Country Cottage Needleworks. I was stitching this on a piece of 32 count light blue Lugana using all the called for flosses. And despite the fact that this is a relatively small design, it has just taken me forever to stitch. I started it last August and I've hardly gotten any time in on it. So the last time you saw it, I had stitched the entire top section. I was about maybe a little over halfway finished with stitching the whole church. I'd started stitching the evergreens. I had started stitching the snow, but I still had a fair ways to go. And I took this piece with me when I went to Nairobi a couple of weeks ago. And because and this was the piece I worked on in airport lounges and on flights and layovers and all of that. And because I got such a nice big concentration of time, I was able to get it finished. So excuse the wrinkles. It's not been washed or ironed yet, but this is how it turned out. So I think it's just absolutely sweet. I really love it. At one point during the stitching process, I did contemplate maybe throwing in some red beads or berries to kind of liven it up. And now that it's all done and out of the hoop, I don't think it needs it. I think it's perfect the way it is. I like sort of the more tonal quality to it. And I'm so pleased with it. I'm so glad that it's finished and I can finally have it to enjoy next winter when it's time to put out the winter decor. So I do have a finishing piece for this and I'm planning to get it fully finished in the next couple of weeks. But for now, this is how it turned out. I'm super pleased with it, and it's nice to finally call this one done. So that is Silent Night by Country Cottage Needleworks. Okay. I also had a finish in my seasonal category, and that you may remember the last time I shared an update with you, I had said I think that the next time this comes out, it would be a finish, and indeed it is. So this is Par une Nuit Enchantée by Couleur d'Étoile. I stitched this on a piece of 40 count anthracite linen with the called for floss, with the main change being that I did choose to add a blending filament to that floss to kind of just give a little bit more of a shimmer. And the last time you saw this, I had stitched everything with the exception of the back legs of the reindeer, and then just the last little bottom section of the big evergreen tree on the far side of the design. And I'm happy to say this is how it turned out. I think this is just absolutely so sweet. It is just such a sweet design. I really, really love how it turned out. I think it's absolutely gorgeous and I'm so glad it's done. This was a quick stitch. It was a fun stitch. Excuse me. And yeah, I can't recommend this designer highly enough. This designer, they have an Etsy shop that is linked in the description box below, and just so many beautiful designs. So this was a real joy to stitch. The one thing I'm a little disappointed, not in the design itself, but I had ordered a custom frame to have ready to frame this up once it was finished. And that frame arrived excuse me, that frame arrived while I was away on my trip. And so I opened it up when I got home, and the color of what I received is very different than the color that was shown on the website. And so I've reached out to the company to resolve the situation. I've not had a response yet. So I'll kind of keep you posted on how that goes, simply because framing is never cheap, and our framing dollars, we want to get them. You know, I don't want to recommend a company to you if it's not a company that I would feel comfortable working with. So I'll keep you posted. But for now, I'm just enjoying having this stitched up, and I'm really hoping to have this framed up and fully finished soon. All right. So now we're going to take a look at the whips. The works that are still in progress that have had some love since the last time we spent time with you. So the first one is My Fancy Lady. And many of you know I have been working on Royal Holiday by Mirabilia for over a year now. I am stitching this on a piece of 32 count Laurel linen using the called for flosses. This is a stitch along that I am doing with a number of other stitchers. Our hashtag is USNZ Royal Holiday Sal. You're welcome to jump in at any time. Other stitchers who are doing this, Sarah the Stitch Addict, she is on Instagram. Lynn Lancashire Stitcher, who is another floss tuber whose videos you should be watching if you're not. And then several other folks on Instagram, that's Nancy Ducat, Kate, who is the Scottish Stitcher, and Andreas Schweikart. So the last time you saw this, it's a little hard to describe progress on this because it's all in the cape pretty much. But the last time you saw this, I was just working toward finishing up the red cape that kind of wraps around the woman and pools at her feet. And I was really hoping to get a little bit more done on this. I knew it wasn't going to get as much love as something would normally get in a standard rotation just because I wasn't going to have the full week on this. I worked on this during the last few days before I left on my trip. And so I knew I was only going to have 4 days to work on it. But even during those 4 days, it was just so busy getting ready for my trip that I had to, I just didn't have much time to work on it in the evenings. So it doesn't have a ton of progress on it, but it is what it is. That's okay. Here's where it is right now. So I've nearly finished this sort of red chunk of cloak that is here. And then I did get more of the sort of this section of the fur lining stitched in, put in more of the ribbons. Sorry for the hanging threads here. And then did some more stitching down here in the pooling section of the cloak. And there's not a ton left to do to finish that up. But that's really all I got done. It was not a lot. And I was really hoping to see this one finished here or finished in April when it comes back out. That's not looking likely given how much of the stitching is left to do. I might get a lot more done than I think I will, but I'm now kind of projecting a May finish just because this did not get as much love as I would have wanted it to in March. So that's all right. It'll get done when it gets done, but isn't she beautiful? I think she's just turning out so lovely. And I'm really excited to be able to get her finished up. So that's my royal holiday. All right. The next piece I worked on was my Floralia Sampler. And this is the piece that I took with me to Nairobi to work on. I debated about what would be the right piece to take with me because I wanted something that wasn't going to be too tricky to work on in a hotel room and, with limited space in my luggage. And so I settled on this one. It had turned out to be an excellent choice. I will say, and I mentioned this before the last video, that it's always hard to predict how much stitching time you're going to have when you're traveling on one of these trips. And I had several days where my morning would start with a 7 a.m. breakfast meeting, and I didn't get back to my hotel room until 10:30 or 11 at night. So I had several days, really long working days, where I did not pick up any stitching whatsoever. So this didn't get as much love as I would have liked, but again, I got to work on it. So that's a big win. So if I haven't said this already, sorry, this is the Floralia Sampler by Chloe Designs. It's being stitched on a piece of 36 count Aqua Edinburgh linen. It is a monochromatic piece that I am stitching with DMC 3808. The last time you saw this, I had nearly finished the woman, the large woman she's the largest element.
Sorry.
You're not helping. If you don't behave yourself, you can't stay.
So what is this woman again?
It's a self-portrait.
How large is she?
It's a self-portrait.
Okay. Hey.
Anyway, she is the largest motif in the design. I was very close to having finished her. I had also finished stitching in the left side border of the design and stitched in the letter X and a few other little motifs. This is getting increasingly difficult sorry, I'm trying to figure out the best way to kind of configure it on my board here so you can see it. the larger it gets, the harder it is to see. So I apologize for a little bit of wrestling and reconfiguring here. So let me show you what I got accomplished while I was traveling. There we go. That should do it. Whew. Okay, so I finished the lady. So I'm really happy because now the largest motif in the entire design is done. That feels great to have that finished. As you can see, I got great progress on getting this border across the bottom of the piece. So there's really not a whole lot of border left to do. And then that will be totally finished off, and that will feel like a massive accomplishment. I finished stitching in the S. I did this rose. I stitched in this floral spray here in the bottom corner, put in a heart, put in this little basket with some flowers and leaves, and then this little floral spray here. I also got started on a couple of new motifs here. There's like a little mini Horn of Plenty kind of vibe going on here, and then the letter T. So again, I would have loved to have had more time with this, but considering the time I did have, I think I made good progress, and I'm looking forward to working on this. It does feel like I'm starting to close in on the end of it, and it's been a lovely piece to work on. So yeah, this was a great choice to take with me. It ended up really being perfect for travel and time in a hotel. All right. Sorry, it takes a little while to fold these bad boys up. The last whip of mine that I have to show you is one that you have not seen for a long time. And that is my Wildcard piece. This is Bush Market by Hannah's Needlecraft. That is an Etsy shop that will be linked in the description box below. I am stitching this on a piece of 32 count vintage country mocha linen, and I'm using all of the called for flosses. And as I said, you have not seen this for a long time. It hasn't actually come out since last fall. And because it's my wild card, it only comes out when I have a finish in one of my other stitching categories. And so it gets loved on every couple of months. The last time you saw this, I was continuing to work on the big acacia tree that's in the middle of the design. I had started stitching an umbrella that there's a woman that will eventually be sitting under the umbrella. And I had made some pretty decent progress on stitching. There's a mama that's holding a baby on her hip, and she's standing underneath the acacia tree in the market. So this is what I got accomplished in one day's time this time around. Didn't touch the lady under the umbrella, so no progress there. But I did finally finish stitching in the entire right side of the acacia tree. So now I'm coming down here and filling in the center. And I'm starting to really feel like I'm getting close to the point where this tree is going to be done. There's a lot of backstitch left to do in the tree. So that will probably be something I focus a little bit more of my energy on next time. But it feels good to be getting so close to having that massive element all done, because that one has just been a huge time investment. I also stitched in more of this lady's skirt. And then there's a little kid over here that's standing at her feet. And so I stitched in his head and his hair. And I'm not sure what these black stitches are over here. We'll see what they turn into as I keep working on this. But this one was really fun to get back out. I really enjoyed the time that I spent working on it. And in particular, picking this back up after having just come back from Africa, it was really nice to kind of have this as a something to work on coming back from my trip. So yeah, I really enjoyed the day that I spent on this. That's Bush Market. That is all as far as whips go for me, but we do have a whip for Gary to share with you. It is not a stitching whip, however. So many of you know that Gary has been working on Captain America by Awesome Pattern Studio, also an Etsy shop. There have been difficulties with that. And there are difficulties that Gary asked for my help in resolving. And I've been very foggy and struggling to kind of get my brain like really functioning as it should as I've come back from this trip. And so I haven't kind of had the bandwidth yet to give it the focus that it needs, but it's something I'm planning to do so he can kind of, we can figure out what's going on with that piece, get it fixed, and get him rolling again. But while I was gone, Gary was working on the model that he had started the last time we filmed an update. So I'm going to stop talking and let him share what he's been up to. That was unnecessary.
For you. Perhaps. Anyway, I guess I should have picked this up while you were talking. So this is where I am. Like I say, this is a globe. The last time you saw it was just a stick with an electronic package on it. You can see that right there in the center. But I put on I got the ribs going, and I put these on. These are actually not easy to get on. You would think they are, but you have to fold them into a groove, and this one keeps popping. These keep popping out, so I got to find another way to secure those. But anyway, this is all done. I put these all on and realized that I hadn't put them on right, so I had to take them all off. So I'm actually putting them all back on again. But in that, this is where I am. I think it's pretty cool. You can see a little gear down here. When it's all together, the whole thing will spin, but it's a little loose and messed up now. Should I hold this? I don't know. Anyway, so that's where I am on this. As far as Captain America goes, it is where it is. It'll get done. It just, problem is that, and I'll put something up that shows this. As I said before, you can see there's one blue section that's up one spot, and we figured, we'll just take that out. And then I started thinking, I was like, well, if we just take that out, wouldn't that mean everything above that is off as well? Which would literally mean everything to the left of that, which would be the entire thing, is off. So we need to look at it and see where the problem is, and then fix it to the best of our ability. So that's going to take a couple months, but we'll get on it anyway. That's Captain America, and that's where that is. Thank you.
I am loving that globe, I have to say. It's a little smaller. I was kind of surprised when I came home and saw what you'd done, because overall it's a little smaller than I was expecting. That's not a bad thing. It's just, I think it is such a cool model. I can't wait to see it finished.
I do too. There's no glue. It's all, you have to fit them together, which I've been building models for years, and I think this is the first one that's not like a plastic snap tight that I put together that doesn't require any kind of wood glue or anything. I don't know if I'm on board with that, but we'll see how it goes.
Cool. Okay, so a little bit more of stitching. I have 2 new starts to share with you. The first one is a new start in my seasonal category. So because I finished Par une nuit enchantée, I got to start Harvest Delivery by Plum Street Samplers. And I've had this in my stash for a long time, have been wanting to stitch it for a long time, so I finally got started on it. I am stitching this on a piece of 36 count Bee's Knees linen by Seraphim. Let me tell, I'm using all the called for flosses. This fabric is phenomenal. So I've got several pieces of Seraphim in my stash, but this is the first time I've actually had a chance to start something on one. It is lovely to stitch on. I'm really, really enjoying this fabric. So I've only gotten in a couple of days on this so far, but it has been an absolute delight. So this is what it's looking like. As you can see, I'm stitching just in these little blobs of brown, whatever these things are, and some flowers and leaves. And I've got to start on the pumpkin and all of this kind of sits in the cart that the horse is pulling.
Of course.
Of course. But this, if you were watching our channel last fall, you might remember that I words are hard today. I stitched Spring Delivery by Plum Street Samplers last fall. And at the time I had talked about how it was such comfort stitching. I so enjoyed working on it. And this piece is shaping up to be exactly the same. I am really, really enjoying this so much. Cannot tell you how much I'm enjoying this. It's a real pleasure to work on. So looking forward to spending more time on this and absolutely loving it. The last new start I have to share with you is in my travel category. And one of the things that was fun was that I actually finished the stitching on Silent Night while I was on my flight between Amsterdam and Seattle on my way home. And so after taking a few short minutes to look at it and enjoy it and appreciate it, I immediately put it away and started my next travel piece. I had a sneaky suspicion when I was packing that I would have time to finish it. And so I went ahead and proactively took my next travel stitch plan to start with me. And so I am going back to Lila's studio, the Seasons series, and I've started Seasons Summer. I'm stitching this on a piece of 32 count vintage Sahara linen by Wildcard, and again using all of the called for flosses. Small start. It's not a big start, but it is a start. So here's where we are with this. I have started the white quilt star up here that you really can't see, so I need to think about what I want to do with that, whether I want to rip it out and put in another color or backstitch it to let it show up some more. And then I've stitched in quite a bit of the first bird here. So yeah, it's a small start, but I am looking forward to getting back to this quite soon. Okay, so let's just quickly talk about what we're going to be working on between now and the next video. So I am going to try and get some more time in on that travel stitching and see if I can put in a little bit more on that. I am also going to revisit my Butterfly Port Mauve, which is my weekend full coverage piece by Heaven and Earth Designs. It has not been getting love just because I've been traveling, and so just no time to work on it, but I'm looking forward to getting back and spending a little bit of time with that. I am going to spend the next week working on my main full coverage, which is Rose Trellis In by Heaven and Earth Designs, so it will be fun to see if I can get to the little evergreen shrub that's on the balcony there. And then I'm going to spend a week working on my Floralia Sampler that we just showed you what I had accomplished in Nairobi. We will figure out what's going on with Captain America, and we will get him sorted out so that Gary can start working on that again. So those are our plans for the next couple of weeks. So that's kind of where we are as far as stitching. If you're not interested in sticking around for me talking a little bit about my trip to Nairobi, this is a great stopping off point. Thanks so much for spending time with us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. And if you are interested in hearing just a few thoughts and reflections and seeing a few photos from my trip, then stick around. So we'll switch gears now. So for those of you that stuck around to hear about the globetrotting part of Globetrotting Stitcher, I just wanted to share a couple of brief reflections. I will say, going into this trip, I knew that just with COVID and the way things are right now, that I wasn't going to do a lot of getting out and doing stuff. So I don't have a lot of, activities to share with you as far as the trip itself. Just more some reflections on some things that were, nice or different or what have you, that I wanted to talk about. And I think one of the things that was, first of all, one of the things that was really special to me for this trip was seeing people that I either haven't seen in a couple of years or meeting some people for the first time. And a great example of that is, my organization, we've been working remotely since the very start of the pandemic. We are still working remotely. And although our office has been reopened on a voluntary basis, I volunteered to stay home. So I've only been to the office one time in the last couple of years. So I haven't seen many of my colleagues. And it happened that as I was flying through Amsterdam on my way to Nairobi, there was a colleague of mine who was on his way back from Nairobi, and we were in Amsterdam at the same time. And this is a colleague that I started working with after the pandemic started. And so we've worked very closely together for over 2 years now, or for about 2 years now. We've had dozens of phone calls, video calls, so we know each other pretty well, but we'd never met. And so here we run into each other in the middle of the airport lounge in Amsterdam for the very first time. And I cannot tell you how much joy I felt to finally meet a colleague who I very much care about and who I very much respect, and to be able to kind of give him a hug and be like, it's so nice to finally meet you. And that was very much how this trip felt for me, was connecting with and seeing colleagues I had either never met or had not seen in years. Connecting with partners that I had never met or hadn't seen in years. It was just such a joy. And I was talking with another colleague who I was traveling with, and we both had this very emotional response landing in Nairobi when we arrived, because it had been so long. It's a place where we've spent a lot of time. We've got a lot of great memories. It's a place that means a lot to us. And so just that kind of emotional response of returning, it felt a little bit like returning to your home away from home. And that part was really special. One of the things that was interesting to me was to see how much Nairobi has changed in the last 3 years. It's been almost 3 years since I've been there now. And I took a couple of pictures actually, just to give a sense from my hotel window. It only captures a small section of the city, but Nairobi is already in many areas very cosmopolitan, skyscrapers, malls, that kind of stuff. But just the amount of growth and new infrastructure that has happened in the last couple of years since we've been away was shocking to me. There's all kinds of new buildings going up. There's new highways going in. And there's one of the things that hasn't changed that was really stark for me looking out of my hotel room window is, seeing in, one section here, this fancy new skyscraper that's going in, and at its foot is sort of this very low income tenement housing with a tin roof. And so it was just, that's kind of in many ways the essence of Nairobi, is sort of the old and the new mashed together. So that was really kind of an interesting reflection for me, just seeing that. It was also a little bit odd being in a place where I've spent a lot of time. I know my way around pretty well. And because so much has changed and so much new infrastructure has gone in, there was this a little bit of disorienting sense of, I know where I am. I recognize these buildings, but the road is totally different. Like everything looks different, even though it's the same. So that was kind of an interesting experience as well. The other thing I wasn't quite prepared for was Nairobi was really hot while I was there. And I think a lot of people tend to assume that Africa is hot, and many parts of Africa are very hot, but Nairobi doesn't tend to be all that hot. It certainly can get warm in what is the summer months for Nairobi. But more often than not, when I'm there, I've been cold, and I've been like, man, I wish I had a jacket. And so this time around, knowing that they were supposed to be heading into their heavy rainy season, which is then followed by winter for them, I went ahead and I packed pretty much like light sweaters, thinking I want to be warm. It was hot. There was no rain in sight. It was really hot. It was, for people in the US, temperatures were in the mid 80s every day. And so the week before I actually left for Nairobi, we were below freezing that entire week. At least at night, we were below freezing. It was really cold here in Seattle. And to go from that to the mid 80s it was a shock to the system. And me and my sweaters were not doing so well. For those of you who are on Celsius, we were like 29, 30 degrees most days. So that was interesting. One of the things that was really fun is I had an opportunity, and Nairobi is also interesting because in addition to sort of this very cosmopolitan, lots of skyscrapers and malls kind of vibe, there's also a lot of green spaces in the city, in and around the city. And so you still have these pockets of places where it's lots of bushes and flowers and like the bougainvillea, kind of trees and bushes, where it's more like Nairobi would have been 25 or 30 years ago. And one of the things that was a really great experience was we got to have dinner at the home of someone who lives in Nairobi in kind of one of these greener areas. And it was so delightful because she lives on a little lake. And I took a bunch of pictures of this because it was just beautiful. So we went at right around sunset time. And every night at sunset, the birds come and they fly in onto the lake. And there's ibis, and I forget what the other birds were. I can't remember the names right now, but these beautiful white birds, they all fly in and they rest down on the lake. And then they all go up into the trees above the lake, and they kind of choose where they're going to sleep in the trees. And you hear all of this squawking going on where sometimes they're having a little bit of a squabble about who gets to sleep on what branch. But they do this every night. And it was just really beautiful, this peaceful, peaceful lake in the middle of a city. And you'd never guess you were in the middle of a city with all these birds just kind of coming in and preparing to go to bed for the night. And so many beautiful tropical flowers. My favorite are the bougainvillea. But it was fun to have dinner in someone's home and to catch up with this woman. I had a good laugh because anytime I travel as a dog person, I always miss my babies. And so anytime I get the chance to like snuggle up to somebody else's dog while I'm traveling, it's a good time. And so this lady has a dog, and we were having a good laugh because she has an avocado tree in her yard. And during the avocado season, when, if they don't get all the avocados picked up off the ground, anything that they miss, the dog loves avocados. And so the dog will go and eat all of the avocados it can get. And this is not a large dog. She's not supposed to be a large dog. She's a chunky monkey, but she's not supposed to be a large dog. She's a smaller terrier. And she's a little beefcake because it's avocados, the avocados are in season right now. And so she's been eating all of the avocados in the yard. And the woman said she gains several kilos every year because she eats so many avocados, which was quite funny. But at any rate, it was just so great to kind of get back to this wonderful place and these wonderful people. It was nice to get back to some of the flavors and the foods that I haven't had in a long time. It's been ages. So one of my favorite things to have for breakfast when I'm traveling, and it's not served everywhere, but it's frequently served, is stewed matoke, which is, matoke is cooking banana. It's very similar to plantain. And one of the traditional preparations is to stew it with tomatoes and onions and spices. And it's wonderful because the banana is soft without being mushy. It's not sweet, it's a savory. And I was so excited when I came down for breakfast the first morning and they had this big tray of stewed matoke. And I was like, I'm having me some of that. It was just wonderful. So yeah, it was great to kind of get back to some familiar flavors. I did have a couple of like harrowing moments where when I am getting into town and I'm settling into my hotel, if I'm going to be staying more than a night or two, I will put my passport in the safe and lock it away so it's safe while I'm having all of my meetings and I don't have to carry it around. And so I had done that on this trip. And as I was packing my last day in town and getting ready to leave, I went to get my passport and something had malfunctioned with the safe and it would not open. So I was like, all right, we're not going to panic. This is fine. The housekeeping staff, they have someone that knows how to open the safe. They're able to take care of this. So I called housekeeping and they sent somebody up and that person messed around with it for about 10 minutes. And they're finally like, I can't get it open. Something's really wrong with this. And that's when I was like, okay, all right, I'm not going to panic. That my passport's in the safe. Who do I need to call? And she was like, I'm going to call the engineers. And I was like, oh my God, the engineers. So anyway, they had one of the building engineers on site, and that person was able to come up pretty quickly because I was like, I'm leaving in a couple of hours. I really need my passport. But that person was able to come up, figure out exactly what was going on, passport out of the safe in a few minutes, and we were good to go. But whew, let me tell you, that was a little bit stressful. But other than that, it was, by and large, smooth sailing. It was fun to get back to the crazy madness that is Nairobi traffic. If you've ever traveled in East Africa, you know what the craziness is like and how lanes are really kind of a suggestion rather than a reality and things like that. So it was a lot of fun. I really loved being back there. One of the things that was really fun is I had a good long layover in Amsterdam on my way back home as well. And so I went to the airport lounge and pulled up on my laptop to watch some Flosstube and do some stitching while I was waiting to catch my next flight. And sure enough, when I opened my laptop and I looked to see, who has the latest videos out, Jantina from Jantina Stitches had recently posted an update video. And so it was really fun because, as many of you know, if you watch Jantina, she's a Dutch stitcher. She's one of the Stitch Coutiers. And so it was just, to me, it was really delightful to be sitting in Amsterdam watching a Flosstube update from a Dutch stitcher. I actually took a picture of me with my stitching and Jantina on the screen in front of me. And it was just fun because I felt like she was keeping me company while I was sitting in Amsterdam waiting to go home. So that was quite fun. But it was a really good trip. It was really great to get back. It was really tiring and invigorating at the same time, and I loved it. I'm so thankful. So I do have another trip on the calendar that's coming up here in the next couple of weeks. I have to go to London in April also for some more meetings. And so as soon as I knew I was going to London, I sent a message to Lynn, who is the Lancashire Stitcher. You hear about her often on my channel because she's part of our Royal Holiday Stitch Along. And I was like, excuse me, I was like, Lynn, I'm coming to London. I would love to meet you if you don't think I'm totally bonkers. And she's like, oh, that'd be great. So as it turns out, the weekend before my meetings start in London, Lynn is attending a stitching retreat. And so she talked to the organizer, and the organizer said I was welcome. So you guys, I get to go to a stitching retreat in the UK here in the next couple of weeks that I was totally not planning on. But it just, because it works out with the timing, I get to meet Lynn. I get to meet a bunch of other UK stitchers, and I'm so excited about it. I cannot wait. It's going to be so much fun. So that's going to be great. I will bring back pictures and share with you about that when I get back. The other thing I would love, you UK stitchers out there who watch this channel, if you have recommendations for brick and mortar shops in London that I can go to and visit while I'm there, that would be great. I would love that. It would be super fun to visit a shop there and do a little bit of shopping. So I think I've rambled on long enough about that. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming to hang out with me today. If you have questions about my trips or the places that I go, feel free to leave them and I will try to respond to those. But in the meantime, happy stitching to you. If you like what we're putting out here on our channel, please do feel free to leave a comment, give us a thumbs up. If you aren't already a subscriber, I hope you'll subscribe and hit the little bell so you get notifications when we post new videos. You're welcome to follow me on Instagram. I'm globetrotting_stitcher there. And you can send me email to globetrottingstitcher@gmail.com. So happy stitching to you. Stay well and safe. And I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye-bye. Ouch.
You ready?
Yeah.
You sure?
No.
No. All right.
Do I look okay?
You look fabulous.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Action.